The Galactic Council chamber was a grand, imposing structure, a monolithic construct of dark obsidian and luminous silver that stretched into the void above the capital world of Vet His Prime. Inside, delegates from hundreds of species filled the tiered seating, their voices a cacophony of hissing, clicking, and rumbling as they debated. At the center of the vast chamber, on a raised platform, Supreme Chancellor Vorex stood, his golden carapace gleaming under the artificial lights. His 6 multifaceted eyes scanned the assembly, exuding the confidence of a being who had seen countless civilizations rise and fall under the will of the Galactic Council. "Order!" His voice boomed through the chamber's amplification systems, silencing the murmurs. "We have gathered today to address the growing concern of the human species." A ripple of amused chittering spread through the delegates. The Council had ruled over the galaxy for millennia, enforcing peace through superior technology, economic manipulation, and, when necessary, precise and overwhelming military intervention. Humanity, a relatively young and obscure race, had been granted limited entry into the galactic community only a century ago. "They are reckless," grumbled Ambassador Zeldar of the Korthan Dominion, his segmented body coiling around his seat. "They expand rapidly, engage in needless conflicts amongst themselves, and refuse to respect the hierarchy of the cosmos." "Indeed," added Delegate Ruhan of the Sveth Consortium, her gelatinous form pulsing with disapproval. "They lack discipline. We must decide now whether they will be permitted to continue their unchecked growth, or if we must," she hesitated, then continued, "correct their course." Chancellor Vorex nodded. "We have tolerated their presence. We have observed their wars, their destruction, their inefficiency. But recently, intelligence reports have raised alarming concerns. The Terran fleet has been mobilizing. They are developing military technologies at a pace that defies our predictions. Worse still, they refuse to share key data regarding their strategic doctrines." "That is because they have none," scoffed General Halker of the Vorshkai Imperium, an avian predator whose steel-gray feathers bristled. "They fight like barbarians, relying on instinct and raw aggression rather than calculated strategy." A new voice cut through the chamber, calm, measured, yet carrying a quiet authority. "That," said Ambassador Evelyn Carter, the sole human representative present, "is where you are mistaken." The chamber fell silent. All eyes, lenses, and sensory appendages turned toward her. She sat composed, her human features unreadable, betraying neither amusement nor concern. "Ah, yes," Vorex said, his mandibles clicking. "Ambassador Carter, you wish to defend your people's erratic behavior." "I wish," Carter said evenly, "to correct your assumptions before they lead you to make a mistake you will not live to regret." Murmurs erupted again, this time tinged with hostility. "Your species lacks the refinement for true strategic warfare," General Halker snapped. "Your battles are chaotic, your methods brutish. Even in your greatest wars, you relied on luck as much as skill." Carter sighed. "I see you have only read the records that suit your narrative. You misunderstand the essence of human warfare, General." She folded her hands in front of her. "And that misunderstanding will be your undoing." Vorex tilted his head. "Enlighten us, then." Carter leaned forward. "Your civilizations, your armies, are predictable. Your wars follow a set pattern. You fight over territory, resources, ideology. You build vast fleets, massive armies, and wage wars that last centuries, where victory is determined by slow attrition." She paused. "Humanity does not wage war that way. Then how do you wage war?" Ruhan sneered. Carter's expression did not change. "We wage war to end war." Laughter echoed through the chamber. Some delegates clicked their mandibles in amusement. Others exchanged condescending glances. "You think yourselves efficient?" Halker scoffed. "You think your short-lived species has mastered war better than the empires that have ruled for millennia?" Carter's voice remained level. "I think we have learned something your empires never needed to." She let the words settle. "Desperation breeds innovation." Silence. Carter stood. "Every species here, every empire, has had the luxury of fighting wars within predictable limits. You amass fleets, deploy soldiers, and grind down your enemies until one side submits." She took a step forward, her gaze sweeping across the chamber. "Humanity has never had that luxury. We fought wars where losing meant extinction. We fought enemies who sought to erase us, not subjugate us. And in doing so, we became something you do not understand. Halker narrowed his eyes. And what exactly is that? Carter's lips curled into a thin smile. Unstoppable. The chamber erupted in outrage. Shouts and jeers filled the air as delegates argued, some calling for sanctions against Earth, others demanding immediate intervention. Vorex let the noise continue for a moment before raising a clawed hand. Silence returned. You make bold claims, Ambassador Carter, he said. But words mean nothing without proof. Carter reached into her console and tapped a command. A holographic projection emerged in the center of the chamber, displaying grainy footage from a battlefield. The date marked it as an event nearly 2 centuries prior, a war fought before humanity had even discovered faster-than-light travel. The Battle of Kresnik Ridge. The recording showed human soldiers, vastly outnumbered, defending a crumbling fortress against an overwhelming mechanized force. The enemy, an empire long extinct, deployed walkers, plasma artillery, and airstrikes. The humans, they had rifles, explosives, and a handful of outdated armored vehicles. The delegates watched in amusement, until the tide shifted. The humans did not break. They did not retreat. They fought with ruthless precision, adapting tactics on the fly, using the terrain to outmaneuver their enemies. They sabotaged supply lines, feigned retreats only to ambush their pursuers, and deployed weapons that should not have worked, should not have been possible. But they did work. The enemy crumbled. The battle was won. Not over months. Not over weeks. But in a single night. As the footage ended, the chamber was silent once more. This time, the silence carried weight. Carter shut off the display. That was centuries ago, she said softly. Before we had the technology we have now. Before we had time to refine our methods. She met Vorex's gaze. You speak of war as though it is an equation. But war is chaos, and humanity has mastered chaos in a way no species ever has. Vorex's mandibles twitched. This is a warning, then? Carter's eyes darkened. This is a fact. Vorex sat back, considering. Then he said, Very well. If you believe humanity is so adept at warfare, then let us put it to the test. He turned to the gathered council. We will send a force to Earth, a demonstration of power, nothing more. If they resist, we will crush them. He turned back to Carter. And we shall see if your people truly deserve their reputation. Carter's face remained unreadable. But deep within her gaze, something flickered. It was not fear. It was something far, far worse. It was certainty. And for the first time, the Galactic Council had reason to be afraid. The Galactic Council wasted no time. Within a standard cycle, the demonstration fleet had been assembled. An armada drawn from multiple allied species, each one eager to prove their dominance over humanity. The fleet was massive. 60 warships, 3 dreadnoughts, and over 200 fighter squadrons. It was a force capable of reducing entire civilizations to dust, a clear message that resistance was futile. The Council had executed similar demonstrations before. When the Kthar rebels refused to acknowledge Council rule, their homeworld was turned into an irradiated wasteland. When the Yorvith Syndicate defied the Council's trade laws, their entire industrial sector was bombed into compliance. Earth, they assumed, would follow the same pattern. But the humans did not beg. They did not surrender. They simply waited. The first contact. The Armada arrived in the Sol system in perfect formation, emerging from the void just beyond Jupiter's orbit. The fleet's supreme commander, Admiral Threx of the Zalvanti Dominion, observed Earth from the bridge of his flagship, the Vindicator, with an air of detached amusement. The planet was small compared to some galactic capitals, its atmosphere fragile, its defenses laughably outdated. There were orbital stations, yes, and a handful of warships patrolling the system, but nothing the Council couldn't eliminate within minutes. The humans remained silent, his second-in-command, strategist Volrin, noted. No distress calls, no requests for negotiation. Threx clicked his mandibles. Arrogance. Or fear. It makes no difference. He turned to the communications officer. Broadcast the standard ultimatum. A synthesized voice carried their demand across every human communication channel. This is the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. Earth is to be placed under direct governance. Any resistance will be met with swift annihilation. Silence. Threx exhaled through his spiracles. They will break soon enough. Then, for the first time, the humans responded. A single message came through. No elaborate pleas. No attempts at diplomacy. Just 4 simple words. Proceed at your own risk. Threx sneered. They are posturing. Launch the first wave. 50 fighters detached from the fleet, sleek and deadly, their energy weapons primed. They surged toward Earth, targeting defense platforms and communication relays. This was the standard protocol: eliminate infrastructure first, then deliver the final blow. What happened next defied all logic. The fighters vanished. No explosions. No distress signals. Just gone. Threx's mandibles tightened. What happened? Where are my ships? Valrin's talons danced over the tactical display, but there were no traces of wreckage, no signs of destruction. It was as if the human homeworld had swallowed them. Then, a new transmission arrived. This time, directly from Earth's military command. A human voice, calm and unwavering, filled the bridge. We told you to turn back. Threx's claws dug into the armrest. Send another wave. 50 more fighters. And track them this time. The second wave launched. Within seconds, alarms blared across the flagship. They're gone. Same as before. Valrin's voice was sharp with disbelief. Threx felt unease creeping into his exoskeleton. Deploy a destroyer. I want full sensor readings. A massive Trelith-class destroyer, armed with planetary bombardment cannons, advanced toward Earth. Every scanner, every tracking system was locked onto it. And yet, as it crossed a certain threshold near the planet, the same thing happened. It disappeared. Gone. Vanished without a trace. The bridge was silent, the weight of uncertainty pressing down like a physical force. Threx's voice was low and controlled, but there was a sharp edge to it now. What is happening? The unveiling of human warfare. Minutes stretched into hours as the Armada hovered in orbit, their fear mounting. And then, without warning, Earth responded. Hundreds of human warships materialized from behind the moon, moving with eerie precision. They were not crude or outdated, as the Council had assumed. These were sleek, black vessels bristling with advanced weaponry, ships that had remained hidden from every Council scan. But that was not the terrifying part. The terrifying part was what came next. Every Galactic Council warship received a direct feed, not of a battle, but of their missing forces. The captured fighters and the destroyer had not been destroyed. They had been taken. And now, live footage showed their pilots and crew bound, restrained, their expressions twisted in shock and horror. Then the feed changed. The human fleet commander appeared. A tall man in a simple uniform, his eyes cold and calculating. He spoke with a terrifying calm. You are mistaken about us. Behind him, the footage shifted again, to the prisoners. We do not fight wars the way you do. We do not waste time in grand battles or drawn-out conflicts. We fight to end our enemies before they even realize the war has begun. One of the captive pilots, a Zalvanti officer, tried to speak. The human commander simply raised a hand. And the pilot vanished. Not executed. Not killed. Simply erased from existence. Panic spread through the Council fleet. These were not conventional tactics. This was something else. Something they could not understand. Your ships are compromised, the human commander continued. Your systems are infiltrated. Your weapons are disabled. At this moment, every single warship in your fleet is one command away from ceasing to exist. Admiral Threx's claws trembled. Impossible! But the proof was undeniable. His control panels were unresponsive. His weapons were offline. His ships were no longer his. The human commander leaned closer to the feed, his voice soft. Now you understand. We do not fight wars. We end them. The transmission cut off. And then the killing began. The Galactic Council fleet never stood a chance. The human ships moved in coordinated strikes, butchering the invaders with terrifying efficiency. Their weapons were not just powerful, they were surgical, targeting command centers, disabling key systems, turning the Council's own ships against them. Within 12 minutes, the 60-ship armada was reduced to debris. The dreadnoughts, the pride of the Galactic Council's military, were hacked and detonated from the inside before they could fire a single shot. Only one ship remained. The Vindicator. Admiral Threx sat frozen, his mind unable to process the scale of the disaster. An entire fleet, the most powerful force ever assembled, had been wiped out in minutes. A final message appeared on his screen. "Go home. Tell them what you saw." The ship's engines were remotely activated, launching it back toward the Council's core worlds. An escape that was no mercy, but a deliberate choice. The humans wanted the Council to know. They wanted the galaxy to understand. The Vindicator limped back to the Galactic Council's core worlds, its once pristine hull scarred and its command crew broken. Admiral Threx sat in his chair, his mind a whirlwind of disbelief and fear. He had witnessed countless battles, crushed rebellions, and enforced the Council's rule with an iron grip. But nothing, had prepared him for what he had seen in the Sol system. Humanity did not fight wars. They ended them before they even began. As the Vindicator exited the final warp jump into the capital system of Xiphos Prime, the sight that greeted Threx sent a shiver through his carapace. The Council's home fleet, 200 warships, including 10 dreadnoughts, was stationed in tight formation around the planet, their weapons primed. The Council was not taking any chances. They expected retaliation. And they were right to. The moment the Vindicator transmitted its security codes, the capital's communication network was hacked. Screens across the entire system flickered to black before displaying a single human face. The same commander who had destroyed their fleet at Earth. He spoke one sentence. "It has already begun." Panic rippled through the Council chamber as the transmission ended. Supreme Chancellor Valnor, leader of the Galactic Council, turned his many eyes toward the assembled war strategists. "What does he mean?" Valnor demanded. "What has begun?" The response came seconds later. Not in words, but in reality. The warship Celestial Wrath, a behemoth of the Council's navy, exploded without warning. Its core went critical, tearing a hole in the fleet's formation. Before the shockwave had even settled, 2 more ships detonated. No enemy fire. No detected infiltration. Just destruction. The security chief screamed over the comms. "They're inside our systems. They're static." Then the lights went out. Every defense platform, every planetary shield, every automated turret shut down at once. The heart of the Council, the capital world Xiphos Prime itself, was now defenseless. And still, no human warships had arrived. The enemy was not at their gates. The enemy was already inside. The fall of the Council. Xiphos Prime descended into chaos. Government facilities, military bunkers, and communication hubs ceased to function, leaving the ruling elite cut off from their own defenses. Then came the next horror. Across the cityscape, key officials began vanishing. Supreme Chancellor Valnor's lead military advisor was standing in the Council chamber one moment, and gone the next. No trace. No energy readings. Just erased from existence. The panic escalated. Security teams stormed into the Chancellor's chambers, but their weapons refused to fire. Their targeting systems failed to recognize humans as valid threats. And then the final blow. A fleet-wide transmission from the human commander. "We are not here to conquer you." The Council chamber fell silent. "We do not want your planets. We do not want your resources. We do not seek war. But if you ever attempt to threaten our world again..." The screen changed to display a live feed from Earth's Deep Space Command. And there, floating in high orbit above the human homeworld, was something terrifying. A warship unlike anything in recorded galactic history. It was massive, eclipsing even the largest Council dreadnoughts. Its design was smooth, seamless, almost organic in nature, as if it had been grown rather than built. It had no visible weapons, no exhaust ports, no structural weak points. It was simply there, a silent monolith of destruction. And then it disappeared. Not via warp jump, not cloaking, just gone. A final warning flashed across every screen in the Council's capital. "You will never see us coming." The transmission ended. And just like that, humanity was gone. Epilogue. The fear that remains. The Galactic Council never recovered from that day. Xiphos Prime was left standing, but it was a corpse of its former self. The war fleet, once unstoppable, was now a shadow of its might. But the real damage wasn't to their ships or their infrastructure. It was to their minds. The greatest military leaders in the galaxy now feared the dark. They feared the silence between transmissions. They feared every moment of peace, wondering if humanity was watching, waiting. No species ever dared to challenge Earth again. And in the hushed halls of power, in secret chambers where only the highest-ranking officials gathered, one phrase was spoken in whispers. The humans do not wage war. They make sure war never happens again. And that was why the Galactic Council fears human warfare.